Elizabeth Montgomery's 1970 Christmas program spanned the boundaries of television. Executives at NBC were rattled, claiming the American public would be overwhelmed. If even one scene was altered, Montgomery vowed to leave. What no one knew: teenage black people from the slums wrote it all. This long-forgotten incident is being brought to light. Plus, it's more surprising than you may expect. Elizabeth Montgomery came into this world at the City of Angels on April 15, 1933. Her lineage ran deep in the Hollywood industry. Her famous actor father, Robert Montgomery, became a well-respected director after being a major Hollywood star in the 1930s. He became one of the most powerful people in the business in 1935 when he was chosen president of the Screen Actors Guild. Elizabeth Allen was a socialite and former Broadway performer who was her mother's daughter. Elizabeth was immersed in the world of cinema and theater from a young age, thanks to her parents' strong roots in the entertainment industry. During her formative years, she and her younger brother, Skip, lived in Hollywood. Despite their wealthy upbringing, their father was a harsh and emotionally detached figure. All of that changed in 1950. After her parents' divorce, she and her father relocated to New York. He also debuted Robert Montgomery Presents, a television series, that year. It was a weekly drama anthology program that featured a new story. Elizabeth would launch her acting career with this show. Elizabeth had a tumultuous connection with her father, even though they were from a theatrical family. Robert Montgomery was very demanding and had high standards. He wasn't always on board with her acting profession and would often provide criticism. Their strained chemistry was immediately apparent when she made her television debut on his show in 1951, when she was 18 years old. Saying hi, Pop in her opening scene, she welcomed him. Robert was so distracted by the seemingly little event that he failed to remember his next phrase. It was obvious that collaborating would be challenging. Elizabeth remained focused on her goals despite her father's criticism. She acquired a solid education at the prestigious New York City all-girls school, the Spence School. She attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts after finishing high school in 1951. She spent 3 years honing her craft there, getting ready for the challenges of live television. Due to the live nature of many early TV broadcasts, performers had to be precise in their performances. By gracefully enduring the scrutiny, Elizabeth demonstrated that she was much more than the daughter of Robert Montgomery. She played Janet Colby in her debut film, the 1953 comedy Late Love. From October 13, 1953, until January 2, 1954, the play was staged. The 1954 Theatre World Award went to her for her outstanding performance. Winning this prestigious award, bestowed upon Broadway's most promising newcomers, was an incredible accomplishment. Not only was Montgomery recognized with an award, but it was also evidence of her genuine brilliance. Because of her early success, she felt confident enough to branch out from stage acting and try her hand at cinema and television. Her 1955 film debut, Otto Preminger's The Court-Martial of Billy Mitchell, marked her entry into the Hollywood film industry. A film based on the life of General Billy Mitchell, a man who was court-martialed for speaking out against the military's disregard for air power, was released on December 22, 1955. A dirigible commander's widow, Margaret Lansdowne, played by Montgomery, perished in an aviation catastrophe. She got to work with A-listers like Rod Steiger and Gary Cooper in a supporting part, which was significant despite her little position. She moved from performing on stage to starring in films after this experience. In little time at all, Montgomery's abilities were most on display on television. In the late 1950s, she was a regular on several hit anthology shows. Studio One and Kraft Television Theater were renowned for their riveting storytelling, and she had dramatic roles in both. Her appearances in Alfred Hitchcock Presents and The Twilight Zone were equally noteworthy. Studio One's A Dead Ringer featured her that year, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents Man with a Problem featured her that same year as well. Her popularity continued to rise with each performance, which demonstrated her ability to tackle dramatic roles with ease. The year 1960 saw Montgomery play one of her most significant roles to that point. On October 13, 1960, she was featured in an episode of The Untouchables called The Rusty Heller Story. She portrayed the role of Rusty Heller, a nightclub dancer from the South who had a convoluted romance with Robert Stax Elliott Ness while using her wits and charisma to seduce mobsters. A tragic hero with a fragile soul, Rusty was a one-of-a-kind figure. As a result of her remarkable performance, Montgomery was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Single Performance by an Actress. For its day, this part was revolutionary. It was an unusual sight for television viewers of the time to watch a strong, independent woman negotiating the male-dominated world of organized crime. It was a combination of fate, timing, and smart choices that led Elizabeth Montgomery to play Samantha Stevens on Bewitched. It was Tammy Grimes who was initially offered the position. However, she declined the offer due to her disapproval of a witch opting to live a domestic life. That opened the door for Montgomery to intervene. Her husband and producer William Asher was already smitten by her charisma and talent. Asher was confident in Montgomery's ability to add charm and wit to the role because of her experience directing I Love Lucy episodes. She did more than take the part, she made it her own. Montgomery was adamant on altering the character's name from Cassandra to Samantha. It was a name that she thought was more approachable and kind. That subtle adjustment brought the character to life and increased her popularity. Bewitched became an immediate hit because of her talent for blending comedy and authenticity. After its 1964 debut, the show swiftly rose to the ranks of ABC's most popular programs. People really like how the show wove supernatural elements into the mundane. Bewitched was the latest in Montgomery's string of critically acclaimed acting appearances, which began with her work in The Untouchables and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. However, she became a television legend after playing Samantha. She was nominated for 4 Golden Globes and 5 Primetime Emmys over her 8 seasons. Even though the program was a huge hit, she still had to deal with problems behind the scenes. Conflicts about who got to decide on the artistic direction contributed to the breakdown of her marriage to Asher. 8 seasons later, in 1972, she made the decision to end the show. Production on Bewitched wasn't always smooth sailing, despite the show's comedic appearance. The original Darren Stevens, Dick York, and Montgomery had a tumultuous relationship. York had long days on set made more difficult by severe back pain stemming from an earlier injury. Though she only regarded him as a co-worker, Montgomery was the object of his love affections. With the passage of time, tensions rose. As his health deteriorated, he was forced to depart from the show in 1969. Another powerful figure on site was Agnes Moorehead, who portrayed Endora. She occasionally clashed with Montgomery over artistic choices, and her fearless demeanor was well known. Still, Moorehead had admiration for Montgomery's abilities despite their disagreements. The mother-daughter interaction between Endora and Samantha was one of the show's strongest points, and their real-life difficulties may have contributed to that. In addition to ensuring that Bewitched ran properly, Montgomery had to cope with her own personal issues. Because of adultery and disagreements over artistic matters, her marriage to Asher was disintegrating. The production of the play was tightly under Asher's control, making collaboration increasingly challenging. Their split changed the dynamic on set by the latter seasons. Montgomery maintained her concentration on giving outstanding performances despite all that was happening. Among Bewitched's most memorable moments was Samantha's twitching nose. However, Montgomery had not intended for it to happen. Her real-life anxious behavior was the source of the twitch. Asher saw it and proposed that Samantha make it her signature move. Montgomery was completely unaware that she had done it at first. She was so frustrated that she twitched her nose throughout rehearsal. Asher could feel its flawlessness. It became Samantha's enchanted signal at that time. The show's creators utilized rapid camera cuts and sound effects to amplify the impression. Her every nose twitch elicited a light-hearted xylophone chirp. When put together, they created a gesture that would go down in television history as one of the most iconic. Montgomery enjoyed it off-camera as well. Ernie Banks hit a home run the very second after she joked about using the twitch at a baseball game for good luck. There was consistent acclaim for Montgomery's work throughout her career. From 1966 to 1970, she received 5 Emmy nominations for Bewitched, and from 1965 to 1971, she received 4 Golden Globe nominations. The program itself was nominated for many awards. William Asher was named the Emmy winner for Best Comedy Director in 1966. The 1968 Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress went to Agnes Moorehead. Nominations for Best Comedy Series kept coming in for the show as it ran. Sisters at Heart, a very unforgettable episode of Bewitched, first aired on December 24, 1970. The show's signature magic and humor were used to tell a Christmas tale with a serious message against racism. Erin Murphy's Tabitha Stevens and Vanetta Rogers' Lisa Wilson are the protagonists of the episode. The two girls are best friends, but when a parkgoer claims the girls can't be sisters due to their different skin hues, Tabitha resolves to use magic to make it happen. As if by magic, her normally white skin is immediately covered in black polka dots while Lisa's skin is instantly covered in white polka dots. For them, it's proof that they're meant to be together. For the same time, Mr. Brockway, an executive for a racist toy business, misreads the situation. In the Stevens house, he spots Lisa's mom and immediately thinks she's Darren's wife, Abbott Tabitha. As a result, he reconsiders a significant commercial contract. Elizabeth Montgomery's Samantha learns her lesson from Brockway when she employs magic once she knows what's occurring. He and everyone else around him will seem dark when she casts a spell. He has no choice but to face his own bias as a result of this event. He changes his mind and decides to celebrate Christmas with both sets of parents at the episode's conclusion. The episode's usage of blackface has been criticized in recent times, despite its intended message of unity. Some people find it troubling, even though it was meant to be part of the anti-racist message. Sisters at Heart is an extraordinary episode, but the backstory is much more so. Marcella Saunders, an English teacher, addressed a letter to William Asher and Elizabeth Montgomery in 1969. Many of her black adolescent pupils were having difficulty reading while she taught at Los Angeles' Jefferson High School. Their devotion, nonetheless, was unwavering. By tying them to something they were passionate about, Saunders wanted to ignite their inspiration. Neither Montgomery nor Asher merely replied. A field trip to the Hollywood set was extended to the whole class. While there, the students collaborated on a script with Saunders' help. It was a Christmas present for Montgomery and Asher from them. Due to their high level of admiration, the pair decided to make a few minor adjustments before transforming it into an actual episode. Some experienced authors had submitted poorer scripts than these high kids, according to Montgomery afterward. Revolutionary was the episode. Bewitched was innovative at a period when few shows on television featured young black characters or voices. They were able to express themselves visually. Montgomery was a huge fan of the show. She loved it so much because it embodied the true meaning of Christmas: virtue, honesty, and fairness in society. The industry also acknowledged its significance. Sisters at Heart's fearless fight against bigotry earned it the esteemed Governor's Award at the 23rd Primetime Emmy Awards in 1971. From the very beginning, Bewitched has never been only a comedic show. An early feminist hero on television, Samantha Stevens was already well respected. She had a sharp mind, was fiercely independent, and was always questioning conventional wisdom. Some have said that her marriage to a mortal was symbolic of the need to tear down boundaries in society. Taking it a step further, Sisters at Heart addressed racism head-on. The episode has sparked criticism even though it was made with good intentions. Even though it was intended to foster togetherness, the blackface motif is today considered antiquated. However, at the time of its airing, it was an unusual effort to tackle racism on primetime television. Not many programs were game to do that. Elizabeth Montgomery had a singular objective following the 1972 finale of Bewitched. She yearned to demonstrate her worth beyond her Samantha Stevens identity. She has portrayed the endearing witch in a hit TV sitcom for 8 years. Although the role catapulted her to stardom, it also ensnared her. Montgomery was aware that it would require a major shift in public perception to overcome the typecasting that many performers experienced after appearing in long-running television series. She was presented with the chance in 1974 through a rape case. Ellen Harrod, a housewife, was portrayed by her. She endures 2 assaults at the hands of the same perpetrator and is subsequently compelled to confront a legal system that disregards the gravity of her suffering. The tale was so horrific and tragic that few news outlets would have dared to air it. Television seldom addressed rape and, when it did, it frequently downplayed the issue. On the other hand, Montgomery was eager to be honest. Concerned that viewers would find the second attack scene too graphic, NBC management contemplated removing it. Montgomery was uninterested. If they diluted the tale, she threatened to walk away. Exactly as scripted, the picture premiered on February 20, 1974. It was seen by almost 27 million homes. It broke ratings records for NBC at the time for a television movie. Earns a whopping 33.1 Nielsen rating and 49% watching share. One of the most powerful performances of Montgomery's career, according to critics. Above all else, the film's influence extended beyond the realm of television. Sexual assault, victim shaming, and judicial system shortcomings became topics of public discourse after its release. Montgomery landed yet another stunning part in the span of a year. Judy Borden. On February 10, 1975, ABC broadcast The Legend of Lizzie Borden, which recounted the tale of the notorious lady suspected of using an axe to kill her stepmother and father in 1892. The movie showed Montgomery in unsettling flashbacks that implied Lizzie had murdered in her underwear so as not to leave blood proof, which was a combination of reality and conjecture. It was a spine-tingling performance. It was hard to discern whether Lizzie was a merciless murderer or a victim of her circumstances since Montgomery imbued her with an eerie silence. She was nominated for an Emmy for the part, and it demonstrated once again that her acting abilities extended well beyond comedic roles. Montgomery underwent a radical career shift in the late 1970s. She portrayed the independent frontierswoman Sayward Luckett Wheeler in the 1978 NBC miniseries The Awakening Land, which ran from February 19 to the 21st. Adapted from Pulitzer Prize-winning books by Conrad Richter, the series dealt with themes of perseverance, familial devotion, and the difficulties of living in a society that was both young and undergoing fast change. Many lauded Montgomery's portrayal as being very realistic. She believably transitioned from a young mother taking care of her brothers to a wise matriarch guiding her own family. The miniseries solidified her status as a highly esteemed performer in television, earning her 6 Emmy nods. Montgomery kept picking challenging parts throughout the 80s and 90s. Quite unlike the kind nurse her fans had come to anticipate, her performance as an abusive abuser of the elderly in 1985's Amos stunned spectators. She portrayed a mother whose connection with her daughter was severely damaged by a traumatic event in the 1991 film Sins of the Mother. Like her on-screen characters, Elizabeth Montgomery's personal life was full of drama. She had 4 marriages, each with its own set of problems, before becoming famous for Bewitched. Some were scandalous, while others ended in tragedy. She had romances that altered her life in surprising ways and affairs that were front-page news. Frederick Gallatin Kamen, a rich New York socialite, was her first husband in 1954. He yearned for a life of seclusion with a woman who avoided the limelight. The Hollywood dream was Montgomery's. They quickly realized they were drastically different. They split up a little over a year after that. She wed 25-year-old Gig Young, an actor who was fighting a terrible alcoholism, in 1956. She attempted to stay up with him at first, drinking in the hopes that it might help. However, there was a lot of emotional upheaval in the relationship. The death of Young's second wife had not yet lifted his mourning. Their marriage became poisonous due to the burden of his background. This was enough for Montgomery by 1963. Her divorce was expedited when she traveled to Mexico. Something terrible happened to Young years down the road. He murdered his 5th wife with a gunshot in 1978 before ending his own life. In the same year that she departed from Young, Montgomery wed producer and director William Asher. They collaborated on the critically acclaimed series Bewitched. They went on to have 3 kids in the decade that followed. However, there were some flaws in their seemingly flawless marriage. In the late 1960s, Montgomery began to develop feelings for someone other than Asher, who had a string of extramarital affairs. Director Richard Michaels, who worked on Bewitched, became more than simply an associate. It was immediately obvious that their romance had begun on set. The 1972 season finale of Bewitched was heavily influenced by the controversy. Montgomery and Asher had a divorce a year after that. Following that, she avoided marriage for quite some time, although she never shied away from love. Elvis Presley, Dean Martin, and ballet sensation Alexander Godunov were among the renowned men rumored to have been involved with her at one point or another. Rumor has it that she had an affair with Godunov before to her marriage to actor Robert Foxworth, while they were still living together. After dating for over 20 years, Montgomery and Foxworth tied the knot in 1993. She finally felt at ease in this relationship, in contrast to her previous ones. She had found the type of love she had been seeking, free of scandals and betrayals. They were married until Montgomery's death from colon cancer in 1995. He was 62 years old. A television star wasn't Elizabeth Montgomery's only accomplishment. She spoke up boldly for the things she cared about as an activist. She was a vocal advocate for women's rights throughout the heyday of feminism in the 60s and 70s. Better chances for women in Hollywood, reproductive rights, and equal pay were all causes she passionately advocated for. Montgomery, unlike many of her contemporaries, spoke out on these issues whenever they arose. Fairness was important to her, and she was not hesitant to speak her mind. Equally ardent was her commitment to LGBTQ+ rights. She served as a Grand Marshal for the 1992 Los Angeles Gay Pride Parade alongside her Enchanted co-star Dick Sargent. Montgomery wanted to express her support for Sargent when he came out as gay. This kind of public support was unusual in Hollywood at the time, but she had been fighting for this cause for a long time. At the height of the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s, she collaborated with groups like AMFAR and AIDS Project Los Angeles to bring attention to the disease and collect funds. Despite widespread stigma, Montgomery would not turn a blind eye to the AIDS epidemic. She took use of her celebrity status to educate the public and attend charity events. Beyond social concerns, her advocacy reached a new level. Despite the dangers, she dared to oppose the authorities. She provided the narration for the 1988 documentary Cover Up, Behind the Iran-Contra Affair, which revealed the covert arms agreements made by the U.S. government. The Panama Deception, which she narrated 4 years later, was critical of the United States invasion of Panama. A Golden Globe was bestowed to the picture in 1993. Montgomery was unwavering in her stance on these topics, even if it was divisive. Her liberal political leanings also included 1968's Robert F. Kennedy and 1988's Jesse Jackson. She was unafraid to voice her opinions publicly and believed in development. The altruism of Montgomery extended beyond her activities. She had a strong commitment to helping those in need, particularly via her work with Learning Ally, a nonprofit that supports individuals with learning difficulties such as dyslexia and blindness. She taped PSAs for Learning Ally's Los Angeles chapter in 1994, the year she passed away. During our childhood, she also provided her voice for A. A. Milnes's books, a cherished anthology of poetry for kids. However, she continued beyond only recording books. On radio and television, she tirelessly advocated for the cause of Learning Allies, drawing attention to the challenges encountered by students with disabilities. She helped make educational resources more available in January 1995 by taking part in a record-a-thon. Despite Elizabeth Montgomery's decades-long reign as bewitched Samantha Stevens, a tragic turn occurred in her later years on the show. She began to feel ill in early 1995 while filming Deadline for Murder from Edna Buchanan's archives. Ignoring the symptoms, she rationalized them as being caused by the flu. Months went by, and she did not improve. On the contrary, she became weaker. She made her doctor's appointment in March. The prognosis was severe. Colorectal cancer in 4th stage. Her lungs and liver were already infected. It remained incurable. Robert Foxworth, her spouse, had observed her transformation. She seemed exhausted. Her weight had dropped. It was too late by the time she listened to his pleading and went to the doctor. The surgeons were planning to operate within days after the patient's diagnosis, but the disease had already progressed too far. No action could be taken on their part. Montgomery settled on an option. Her final wish was to spend time at her Beverly Hills home. She died on May 18, 1995, which was only 8 weeks after she was diagnosed. The age of her was 62. Foxworth and her 3 children were standing at her side. Numerous admirers were shocked to hear about her passing. A memorial ceremony was held a month later, and close friends and family were there. Performing was jazz great Herbie Hancock. Memories were shared by loved ones. The scattering of Montgomery's ashes over the Pacific Ocean was her expressed desire. An actress who had enchanted millions was bid goodbye in a solemn but moving ceremony. Colorectal cancer was second in terms of cancer-related mortality in the U.S. in the 90s. Blood tests weren't routine for those 50 and over. December was the turning point. In 1995, not long after Montgomery passed away, it became standard practice according to U.S. health experts. Many individuals have been able to live because to modern therapy advances. However, at that time, there was little hope for a late-stage diagnosis such as hers. Another conflict sprang out following her death. $10 million was the estimated value of Montgomery's money. Her financial situation remained undisclosed. But in the 1980s, rumors spread about a hidden cash cow, advertising airing in Japan. Family strife ensued as a result of the distribution of her estate. A Bentley and other bewitched-related items were among her belongings that were sold at auction. Charities like AIDS research, which she was very passionate about, received a portion of the sales. However, her legacy was overshadowed by family disagreements.